What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Joystick Show, a podcast where three friends from high school in Hawaii get together to chat about comics, video games, and pop culture. Tonight, we have a very special guest that we are spotlighting. I met him at Black Comics Day. His name is Obichukwu Udeh. He is the co-founder and the creator of Kolanut Productions and Red Hunter, which we'll be diving into a little bit more. Obi, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You know, it rained a little bit today, you know, so didn't get a lot of time outside, but it was a lot of time to just like binge watch some shows. So can't complain. Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, man, just want people to get to know you a little bit more to start things off. And I kind of got to hear a little bit about your story at Black Comics Day, but I want to just start with a fun question before we dive into like all the nitty gritty. But did you have a favorite show as a kid?
Oh yeah, I mean, there was a lot of great shows. I mean, it depends on which channel you had. If you had it on cable, or if you didn't. Yeah. But like on Toonami, if you had cable or whatever, definitely favorite show was these kind of two. Definitely Dragon Ball Z and Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack, those two were some pretty big heavy hitters. And then if you had like I think Channel 5 or Channel 7, something like that, we had like Kids WB and like Jackie Chan Adventures was a automatic classic.
Nice. Yeah, 100%. Man. We've talked about Jackie Chan Adventures a bunch on this show, and it's like, why? I don't know. I just haven't seen it maybe, but like, where are the cartoons like that? Because that show is slap, man. It was so good. It was so funny. The powers were cool. Like everything about it was good. So yeah, definitely missed that one. But also, like, it's funny you mentioned Samurai Jack because I feel like the animation or like the art style in your books, which we'll get into a little bit more later, is very playful and very youthful too. Did you take some inspiration from that?
Well, Samurai Jack, I think, is the best combination of the seriousness and philosophy of anime and the fun of like cartoons.
Right.
So like one of the biggest influences that we took from Samurai Jack. A lot of our works had maybe small, tiny bits of Samurai Jack, nothing major. But our most recent work, Red Hunter, which dropped early this year, is heavily based. There's a lot I take from Samurai Jack to influence it. Like if you see the beginning prologue, if you read it, it's very much to sound like the intro of Samurai Jack. Long ago, and that whole idea. That's where that comes from.
Dude, okay, that's great because I was reading it that way, and I was like, man, this feels like an epic. Like Samurai Jack is, I think, is a perfect example of just that epic introduction to the story.
Yes, exactly, and I think the reason Samurai Jack works a lot for Kolanut Productions is because a classic theme in all of our works, which is based on scholarly material, is that the continent of Africa, in many of its countries, 54 plus country, is always constantly struggling between tradition and modernity, or like the future and technology.
Right.
And so with Red Hunter, it was very easy to have this character emerge from the ground in the future that he doesn't even understand. And that's very much Jackie Chan, right? He's thrown into a future that is cool. And right. And so
Samurai Jack. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So that's why Samurai Jack really is easy to kind of weave in because Samurai Jack has to acclimate himself to a future that has none of the things that he knows. He's walking around in traditional clothes and a sword. In Red Hunter, he's the guy with arrows. He's in traditional clothes. He calls cars furless animals, right? Yeah. So like, it's a lot of those things that come into Samurai Jack that I think Samurai Jack is written really well to help new viewers or a person who's watching first time kind of feel like the character, which is like, I don't even know what's going on, but I have to hack and slash and figure out my way out of it.
Right. Yeah. Like I got to fight my way through. That's so crazy. Yeah. That's awesome. I didn't even realize the parallels in the stories, but like it makes sense, but you're doing it in your own way. That's super badass.
Yes.
So the other thing is, so tell me about you, because you told me this really awesome story when I met you, and it was about this red hat, and the red hat comes into play in Red Origins, but it has a personal story, like a tie-in to you.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of like, as a creator, when we were first creating work, I was reading about other creators, and they would, like, just like artists, you'd put Easter eggs or things about yourself in the work,
right?
Either the whole work or just like little pieces. And so
sometimes your own name, right?
Exactly. Well, that was my idea.
I was like, oh, Obi. I was like, word. Okay, he put himself in the story. Nice.
No. Obi is a very common name. It's like the John of Nigerian culture. There's many Obis. With when we were creating the work, particularly this work, we would pull from. We would discover when we kind of unpack it that it's coming from a point of our upbringing.
Right.
As a Nigerian American living and being raised in the U.S., like on the outside, you're just Black American. But when you come inside, there's a different language being spoken to you, Igbo. The food is different. I have a whole set of clothes closet that's different than jeans and t-shirts. It's like traditional clothes. So like there's a lot of that lifestyle of living in between where inside is different than outside when I leave the house. And so one thing as growing up was that, my dad's a chief and he had many Nigerian hats. Like most Nigerians have many hats.
All right.
And as a kid, I always remember going to this drawer where all the hats are there, like all the hats. I'd be putting them on, messing around. Mm-hmm. It's one of my childhood memories. But I do remember that there was a red hat, there's a chief hat that my father would always wear and other chiefs would wear, and I could never put it on and I could never mess around with it. It was actually in a different case than the other hats.
Right. He's like, you can touch all of them except for that one. Like, do not touch that one. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the mystical elements of the red chief hat that was in my life, real life, played a part into the story. So when the other co-creator and co-founder, Oyi, who's also my brother, who came up with the story, like basically the story, Obi, John, and Temi, and his red hat transports them to Nigeria. A lot of that was based on our upbringing. And so that's what kind of played in. So Red Origins is that whole taboo or like the mysticalness of this hat also comes from our kind of pastime.
Right on. Yeah. So like if your dad's hat had really had these mystical powers and if you had touched it with your friends, then they transported you back to Nigeria, this is what would happen.
Exactly. It's kind of like that. It's 3 kids living in California. I'm living in California, and then you take your dad's chief hat. And I think that's the beauty of the imagination and being able to tell stories that are different from the norm. Like it's not like a Captain America. It's not like any of those things. And that was also hard growing up looking at the stories because that was a little bit different from my background experience.
Right.
Like it wasn't an accident, like a spider bit me and then I had these powers. It was like, here's this legacy that's in a different country.
Right.
And it's in the house. And if you open this drawer or whatever, you'll see it. And your imagination can automatically begin to run, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, okay, this is from your motherland. And, if I touch this thing or put it on, like it has some kind of power. So that's a big thing that plays a big part in Red Origins. And Red Origins forms the basis of all the world building of our other stories.
Right. Okay. Right on, man. Which is an awesome point, and thank you for saying that because it's like, one, it's cool that you have this tie into the characters to the world you're building, but two, it's like, all right. And we'll make sure to highlight this at the end, but it's like if people were just jumping in right now, like boom, they click on your Instagram, they want to know where to start. Is Red Origins the place that they should start to read all the books?
Great question. We do have a reading order. Mm-hmm. In the reading order, I wish I had it pulled up again, but in the reading order, I believe Red Origins, it goes Red Origins, then Kisi.
Okay.
And then Red Hunter.
Okay.
You read it and I believe there's another story before that, but like it's Red Origins, Kisi, then Red Hunter. If you read these 3, it'll all come together, like the whole world and what's happening.
Right. Yeah. It's called like, you're calling like the ACU, right? Is that
the NCU? NCU. The Neo-African, the NCU, the Neo-African Comic Universe.
Okay.
And that NCU has we've been creating this actually I'll retrace my steps. I have the reading order in front of me.
Okay.
The first story you want to start off with is Mami Wata. So Mami Wata is going to be, we're hoping to release it this year.
Okay.
But Mami Wata is the first, chapter 1 and chapter 2 is the first part of the normal universe. Mm-hmm. You're gonna get those later. You want to start with Kisi chapter 1. After you read Kisi chapter 1, you read Red Origins 1 through 3.
Okay.
After you read Red Origins 1 through 3, you read Kisi chapter 2.
Okay.
And once you read Kisi chapter 2, you can then finally read Red Hunter chapter 1. That's the reading order.
Right
so
on.
Kisi 1, Red Origins 1 through 3, Kisi 2, then Red Hunter.
Okay, man, I'm gonna write that down after this recording, and hopefully you got it on the Instagram, on the Twitter, and everything, so people can see that, so they know.
Oh, that's an exclusive right there.
Hell yeah! All right.
Yeah, that's the exclusive. We've been putting little tidbits for our readers to kind of uncover. We want them to really uncover and dive in, and so soon we're gonna be putting the reading order out there. But right now, that was an exclusive. Like, if you want to know the reading order for Kolanut Productions, you got to join. You got to tune into the Joystick Show and catch this episode.
Right on. Awesome, man. That's sweet. Yeah, because I was curious about it, right? I got Red Origins when I went to Black Comics Day. I hung out with you guys. And by the way, like, one of the coolest booths, you had your webtoons go on with the animation. You got like a full cartoon playing. Then you have all your books spread out. You guys that were there to tell the personal story, to talk about the book. So all of that was super dope. And then, I get Red Origins, but then, I'm talking to you and you're like, oh, have you read Red Hunter? And I'm like, I haven't yet. And so I was wondering where the timeline, because Red Hunter, if you look at the timeline of the story, it seems like that would probably be the first, no?
Well, that's a really great question. That's why if you read in the prologue of Red Hunter, they said the year 2070. I believe they kind of mention it.
Right, because it goes from 1500s to 2070, right?
Yes, and Red Origins is year 2072. It's not quite mentioned.
Oh,
so
okay.
Although Red Origins is the first comic, there are other events happening, because you got to understand, Africa is not a monolith. Actually, technically, in this story, 2070, it is one country, but Red Origins is happening in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Kisi and Red Hunter is happening in Ghana. And Nigeria is right here. Then there's Benin, and then I think Togoland, and then Ghana. So it's like Nigeria, Ghana. There's two countries in between. And so in 2070, Africa is one country called Neo-Africa.
Right.
And Obi in Red Origins having his situation happening. And then Kisi's having her situation. So Kisi's happening, and it's happening in Ghana. And the way it looks, it seems that each country has a different flavor of how the future looks. Right. So like Kisi Red Hunter is like a lot of like futuristic elements, but that's because of kind of how the storyline is going. Like Nigeria, there's so much, like Red Origins, the Juju world is like deep in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like the way, if you read Red Origins, like all those guys in the Juju uniforms, they're operating heavily in Nigeria. It's like if you go to San Diego. If you go to San Diego, there's a lot of military bases, right? So there's a lot of military there, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to like LA, there's more film directors and all that, right?
Yeah, it's a different.
It's kind of like
vibe,
that.
Different people.
It's different vibe, right? But it's still 2023, right? In that San Diego, LA. So that's the same concept. It's like Kisi right off the gate is happening in this New African comic universe, and from that, there's Red Origins where Obi gets transported with his friends, and they do what they're doing, and then whatever they do causes such a stir that chapter 2 is mentioned. It's mentioned in chapter 2 of Kisi.
Okay. And there's the tie-in.
Yes, exactly. So it's a lot. So to explain succinctly, the NCU, N as in Nancy, C as in cat, U as in umbrella. The NCU is the Neo-African comic universe, multiverse. And so Red Origins and Kisi and Red Hunter, they're only in one of the 5 universes of the MCU.
Wow, man. Yeah, you must have like a calendar and like a whole map and like, pins and strings go into it to figure out the timeline and everything. Cause if I was doing it, I would have lost track like one book in. I'd be like, wait, what are we doing? But no, that's awesome. It sounds so dope. And I get what you're saying now. I'm trying to think of how to voice this question here. Was there something like movies or shows that you've watched that you were like, you know what, I'm gonna take influence from this and I'm gonna use it besides Samurai Jack, which we get that now. Was there something where you were growing up or even something recently where you're like, that has really influenced my work?
Well, I said in another podcast, I was like, you have to, when you're in this game, you have to study, you have to pick your master and study them. The two masters that I studied were Hayao Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli, and Makashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto.
Okay. Yeah, I think you said it right.
Yeah, and I studied those two, and those they gave me the groundwork for Red Origins. And so Red Origins became this huge world, right? Where there's all these things happening. Instead of Land of the Fire, Hidden Leaf, Red Origins has animals, right? The crop core, the leopard core. It's like, so all those things are pulled from that. That was a huge influence. And then Miyazaki was just the whole mysticism, really taking traditional beliefs like Shinto beliefs in Japanese and looking at animism, like I'm looking at the animism in African mysticism,
right?
And applying it, looking at it the way that Hayao Miyazaki would look at it. Where there's talking animals, there's this things about the environment, there's all those things. So that formed a basis.
Yeah.
And as we continued to write, we were of course looking at there were a lot of crossovers that were happening in 2013, 2014. Huge crossovers where different stories are coming together. And so we were looking at what Marvel was doing very carefully.
Yeah.
We were looking at what, so we were studying Marvel and we were like, just look at the universe. Look how they're tying everything together.
Right. Like how they put all the pieces in place and made stories intersect and connect. And then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were like, huh. And then what changed the game was when Dragon Ball Super came out. When Dragon Ball Super came out, I was like, whoa. Universe 1, Universe 2, Universe 7. Remember that? It was like, it wasn't, it just changed. And I wasn't following the manga, but a lot of the manga readers already understood this, how large it was.
Right.
So to go back to your question, Naruto, Hayao Miyazaki, and a little bit Lord of the Rings formed the basic world building. We're like, we're going to create a crazy world that's deep. That's what Red Origins did. Then we looked and we're like, whoa, crossovers are happening in the nerd world. Marvel is doing these crazy intersecting things. There's all these things happening. These stories are really, really cool. We got to pay attention. This is what the market is. This is what's happening in the market, and people are interested in that. Yeah. So that formed the basis. And then we'll close the book and just say, hey, you have got to understand how your stories interconnect. Was when Dragon Ball Super came out.
Dang, I really wish Drake was here because he's like the biggest Dragon Ball fan I know, and he knows everything about it. He was into Dragon Ball Super. I think I don't know if he watched the newest anime. You know, they had like Dragon Ball Superhero, I think that just came out. Yeah. I mean, all that's dope. I love Dragon Ball, but I have not followed it as closely in the recent years. And like, I usually go to Drake for that. But I mean, just when you look at Dragon Ball and what they've been able to do, right? It's like a story. They had their main set of characters. You got Goku trying to get the Dragon Balls, right? That was like the main point. And it's now expanded to where, okay, it's not just about the Saiyans. It's about, Piccolo's race. It's about Majin Buu's race. And like you said, now there's different worlds and all that. And they keep finding ways to make it more interesting and find ways to make characters grow and plot points. It's really freaking cool. And yeah, I get that. I get that vibe from Red Origins too, where I can see what you're saying. Like, depending on what part of Africa and the character you're following, they're on their own adventure, but the ripple effects could be so big that it can affect somebody else in a different part of Africa, right? And that's tight. That's awesome. I really dig that. Did you always have this fascination with comics and fantasy and all that stuff when you were growing up?
I'm from the anime community, honestly. I wasn't reading comics too much. I was reading maybe those gaming magazines like Cheat Code.
Game Informer back in the day.
Yeah, Game Informer. That was the extent. I didn't really read comics too much. It was mostly anime, and anime was what really inspired us, and it was kind of the biggest kind of push that pushed me into that world.
Yeah.
It was just anime. And I love to read anime. And of course I love to read. So I had always an interest in African storytelling, but there was also the fact that I also would watch anime. And anime was also something that was kind of like a very healing. It was very healing for me, right?
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, no, it's like, you know how people talk about if you had a bad day, the ice cream, cookie dough, whatever.
yeah. Like for girls, it's like cookie dough and wine and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, me, a bowl of cereal and some anime. Like,
what kind of cereal?
What's up?
What kind of cereal?
Well, it depends. It depends. You know, like sometimes Cocoa Puffs.
Okay.
You know, Honey Nut Cheerios. You know.
Oh, okay. All right. It's different every time depending on the mood.
Yeah.
All right. No, gotcha.
Exactly. So no, anime was where I was coming in. Of course, I gamed too, and so like the thing about Dragon Ball Super, what we absorbed is that look, we need to build an ecosystem. So it's not just about creating one character, one story, and just following it. Like you see in we're looking at the Asia way, how they're pursuing content. We're seeing the US way, how they're pursuing content. And these models are really, really enterprise. They're large and they have a huge following. And people can just live in Dragon Ball. People can just live in maybe Naruto. I mean, I was going to the bank for something and I recognized 2 wings on someone's thing. And I was like, that's Attack on Titan. Like,
yeah.
You know, so it was, I understood what that meant.
Yeah.
By having the scout uniform. This is a grown person with a scout uniform at the bank. And I was like, okay, so we want to do that for African content. And so that's what that's where our mind went. And the whole idea of Neo Africa, that happened in our first Kickstarter, 2014, we were talking about Neo Africa. And then around 2016, 2017, we're coming out with the multiverse. We really need to show the world that this is much bigger. It's much bigger than our characters' Red Origins. It's much bigger than Kisi. We have a whole nother universe where things are happening in space.
Wow. That's awesome. And then the space segment of it, that also ties back into what's going on with Red Origin and Red Hunter and Kisi and everything?
Well, it's a different... So when I went to my writer, who you saw at, our head writer, who you saw at Black Comics Day.
Yeah.
Christopher Plummer. And I was like, look, we have so many stories. Can you tell me how this all comes together?
Yeah.
And I was like, is this a universe? Like, this is happening because the space thing is happening in 3050. This is happening in 2070. How is this working?
Oh, that's a big time jump. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, is it a Trunks thing? Is Trunks coming? Like, are we doing Trunks coming back?
Right.
Trunks?
Oh, I love Trunks. Man, if that's how it works out, like I'm definitely picking up that book because Trunks is one of my favorite Dragon Ball characters.
Oh,
by far.
Future Trunks, when he came onto the scene, if there was internet at that time, servers would be shut down.
Yeah. Websites crashing.
Yeah, because everyone was waiting for Frieza coming. Like I was glued to that TV. It was the craziest moment of my life, was just watching and waiting at each episode as, you know, a Frieza appears. And like Frieza appears and this guy with the coolest character design, with the sword, destroys Frieza. And like after that, I was like, what is going on? This is like the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The Android series. But like I wanted that experience. So I asked him and he said, no, we're more like the DCE. We're more like DC.
Okay.
Even though we're following Marvel, we're more like DC. And I said, explain that. It's like, it's a multiverse. I was like, multiverse? So yeah, all this is happening in a whole nother universe. And in that universe, the universe is starting at 3050. Well, and that's called the Dogon universe. The Dogon universe is all space. It's everything in space, planets, all that. Nice. Well, the Red Origins, all that, it's in the normal universe. The starting point is like 2070.
Right. 2
different universes. And so when he explained that, I said, oh, okay, I definitely understand now. I can see how this will all come together. And what happened is we begin to formulate our universes or define our universes by theme. So like normal universe, Red Origin, Kisi, Red Hunter, is all about the clash between juju and technology.
Yeah,
it's always You're always going to have that robots and jujutsu just constantly clashing.
Oh, it's cool. That's a cool concept. Like magic versus technology, right?
Exactly.
And there's that battle that's always the heroes are trying to navigate.
Happening. Yeah, and it's really big in like on the continent where someone could be on their iPad and then schedule an appointment with an actual witch doctor. This is happening right now.
Oh, wow. In real life, like you could do that. Yeah.
It's a constant clash. If you go to the West Africa, it's a constant clash between old and new, living simultaneously. Mm. And so that is the normal universe. The Dogon universe is it's like space odyssey. It's where, countries are planets. Mm. And it's just exploration of space. And Africans are the African diaspora in space, which is why you have Neptune's Blues. Mm. Neptune's Blues, they're blues musicians, and blues is known from the diaspora. I mean, like famous blues musicians. We're taking that into space, and they're going in and learning from each planet. They're learning about different genre that's specific to the African diaspora. Because I don't know if you know, in the African diaspora, music is very spiritual. Yeah. So the spiritual thing that's used in space as a power, like how does that play in? So the Dogon universe is about lands, bounty hunters, space pirates. Wow. It's like we have our own kind of stormtroopers.
Yeah, yeah. You got your own Star Wars. I mean, really.
Exactly.
The whole thing. So,
the whole thing. Like you can do that there. And so that's what the Dogon universe is about. And so that's how we were able to kind of make sense of it. So that was the final layer was DC. So it was like Hayao Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki, Naruto, and Studio Ghibli, then Marvel. Yeah. The Naruto, Studio Ghibli, a little bit of Samurai Jack, all those.
Right.
Then Marvel, then Dragon Ball Super, and then the DC. And then we were like, okay, how do we make sure we make this all make sense? And that's when, I think around that time, you started seeing more things like the multiverse of madness and stuff like that.
Yeah. It just happened. You guys were doing it, and now it's coming to the big screen, and it's like the multiverse is like the popular thing right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow, man, that's crazy. That's really cool. I am not creative enough to think of anything like that. That would be way outside of my mind to be able to imagine something like that. But I mean, it's really dope that you guys came up with this. I guess I'm wondering, was there a character, we know that there was a big anime influence, but was there a main superhero when you were growing up that you were like, man, that's my favorite hero? I want something like that.
Honestly, Goku was always my favorite. We'll start with Batman. I really like Batman.
Okay. Classic for sure.
Yeah, Batman is classic. I just like the whole idea about Batman. Mm-hmm. But it was Goku for the longest time. And I explained this in another podcast. I think one of the greatest superpowers is to convert your enemy to a friend. And Goku had that power. I never saw that in other heroes, Superman. None of that. Goku, the whole Z-Force is all his enemies converted, essentially most of his enemies converted into a group of friends. And I found that form of leadership and heroism extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. Like Batman works on distrust. And it is great. I love Batman for it. But Goku literally befriends the
his enemies.
The person that literally destroyed his entire race.
Right. Yeah.
And asked him to fight with him to save you.
Yeah.
It was like Goku was consistent. Like when I saw that, I was like, this is so consistent where anybody would harbor a certain feeling about this character. Because Frieza is evil. I love Frieza, but Frieza's it's Frieza.
Yeah.
And I don't know the spoiler, but literally near the end, Frieza fights with him even when he has a halo, and they're everyone can get what they want. And I think Goku or whatever grants Frieza to be alive again. It's like letting a menace back. And so I've always found Goku fascinating, the way he treats his enemies.
Yeah.
And even though it goes to fight, because in the beginning he didn't want to fight to death, but if it gets there, it'll get there, right? But like that's why Goku was my favorite hero for a long time. And later on, like Naruto also.
I love that. I love that take. You're right. I didn't even, because when you think about powers, you're like, okay, he can fly. He can he's super strong. He can do energy blast. But it's like, you're right. That's not necessarily his only powers. Like his ability to turn the enemies to his allies, to his friends is, you're right, a power in itself. Because how many people would want to just go after revenge or go back at the people who killed his race or, threatened his family or threatened his planet? Like that's not the only thing about him. There's so much good in him that converting his enemies to his side is a power. I love that. I never even looked at it that way. I think that's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing, man. All right, where did the whole name Kolanut Productions come from?
Yeah, great question. So Kolanut in our tradition, in the Igbo tradition, IGBO Igbo, in Nigeria, there's several ethnicities, and Igbo is one of the ethnicities that have their own language, their own culture, their own land. I'm Igbo.
Okay.
And we have a ceremony. When someone comes to your house, you have to have Kolanut, Oji as they call it. And when they come to your house, you present the Kolanut, and you break the Kolanut, you pray over it, and then you eat it. And the Kolanut is a stimulant. It used to be in Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay.
It's a very caffeinated bean, and then it stimulates conversation. So the Kolanut is sort of like the African tea ceremony. So if someone comes to your house, you get married.
Yeah.
You break the Kolanut. Like multiple big occasions, there'll be the breaking of the Kolanut. So Kolanut is a welcoming. It means I welcome you. And so if you came to my house and I didn't break the Kolanut, that means I don't welcome you.
Wow.
And so Kolanut is a welcoming to African content. We're saying we welcome you to this African lens, African inspired comic and animation content. We welcome you to enjoy it and share in it. So that's why it's called Kolanut.
Damn, that's beautiful, man. That's incredible. Like I'm from Hawaii, like me, Scott, Drake, all of us are part of the Joystick Show. We all grew up in Hawaii, and I just can relate to that a lot because Hawaii has certain traditions like that as well, right? Not necessarily the kola nut, but when you're talking about it, there is a nut in Hawaii called the kukui nut. And the kukui nut was a very sacred type of plant to the Hawaiians as well, because you could crack it open. I don't think you necessarily eat it, but the liquid in it is very flammable. So it could light things, and it could stay on fire for a very long time. And people can turn kukui nuts into necklaces and shells and everything too. But yeah, I think there's a more spiritual aspect to it as well, and yeah, I don't know. I just think it's awesome. I feel like there's a lot of similarities there that I understand, but I think it's beautiful. And you're bringing something that's positive, it's welcoming, that is your brand. And then you're saying, hey, come in and read these stories that are very much a part of you and the culture as well, which I think is so awesome, man. I just think it's really fucking cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's also some little hidden meanings, like our logo.
Yeah.
There's a lot in this logo. So I when we came up with Kolanut Productions or Kolanut, I was like, this is amazing. It was the best description of, to me, it was the best name for an African studio or African inspired studio, because Kolanut is used across the continent.
Right.
And then when we were creating the logo, we looked into actual traditional African script, because one of the lies or the things that are put on the Black diaspora is that we didn't write anything. The continent's a dark continent. There was nothing written. There's no writing system. That's what we grew up being told. There's no writing system. It's typically only oral tradition. African countries in the ancient or pre-colonial was oral tradition only.
Wow.
That's not true. There are different scripts. Writing systems. Writing and scripts was used like magic.
I apologize, man. It kind of cut out there for a second. Do you mind saying that over again? I'm going to try to edit some of that out. Basically talking about after, or it wasn't true that there was no written system. Do you mind saying that part over again? Because I'm really curious, and for some reason it just cut out right there. Yeah,
no worry. So Kolanut, even though we're welcoming you, there's a lot of we had to work hard to break a lot of perceptions about Africa, the continent. And even in our logo, this is actually based on a traditional writing script in one of the ethnicities. And the reason we did this is because there's a perception, there's been a lie, there's been things that we told historically that African societies across that large continent mass had no writing system, was purely oral tradition and had no script.
Right.
And that's not true. There are writing systems and in different African societies, but writing was used the way grammar was used in Europe. Grammar books were considered magic books. Scripts, like script or writing systems, was used as a way of, was actually like a magic or secret society system. Many writing systems were part of secret societies. Because again, writing conceptually is kind of magical. I can write something, put some lines, and if you look at it, it can tell you a message.
Yeah. It can make a sound, but then you put those sounds together and now it creates a word and it creates meaning.
Right. But if you look at it, just this line on my shirt, if I write it, and then I'm not saying it, I just write it. I just draw these. I'm not even saying write. I draw these lines and then I leave it at your doorstep and you come and see it and you immediately know what it means and can act on it. That's magic in a sense for a lot of traditional societies.
Yeah.
So a lot of script was used differently. It was used for clothes. It was used as a charm. It was used for secret messaging between secret societies. So a lot of African society script died with the secret society members because they didn't want to share it.
Yeah.
So to combat, even though we welcome you, we have to combat and deconstruct perceptions about African storytelling, whether it be there's no writing system, starving people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in this thing here, Red Orange is about, right, they have the tortoise. So when we were looking at the writing system, we saw this tortoise that was the symbol of a tortoise in one of the ancient society writing systems. And it meant keeper of secrets. And so we're like, oh my God, we have this tortoise in Red Origin. Yeah. And here is the writing system that this symbol means of a tortoise or turtle means they're keeper of secrets. And Kolanut, we're keeper of all this knowledge and storytelling. Yeah. Keeper of secret. And then I think the top and bottom had to do with kind of like the environment. So it's basically, even though Kolanut production, Kolanut means we welcome you. We're also saying we are the keeper of the secret language, stories, and traditions of this massive continent.
That's awesome. Could you even say like, we're welcoming you to our secrets or our knowledge in a way, right? And I think, man, that together, that is incredible, man. Like when all of this was coming together, we were like, how the hell is it coming together this good? Because this is crazy.
I remember that period. I mean, Kolanut was like, I think I was going, my co-founder, he's very good at naming things. He was like, we're going back and forth. And I was like, nah. And he was like, Kolanut. And I was like, Kolanut. And it would just make sense because it was like such a big part of our life. And I was like, yeah, that's it.
That's it.
And then we're doing it. And we're working on a logo. And we did a lot of research. I spent a lot of money on this book on all the African writing systems.
Wow.
And I went through it. And I like, you have to make the logo mean something, right?
Yeah.
And then we saw this tortoise, and I was like, keeper of secrets. I was like, this is it.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
We saw this other symbol that had something, I can't remember what it meant, but it just came together, and I was like, this is it. They did the logo. A couple of versions were like, that was it. It was definitely a moment. It was definitely powerful. And I think that's what I really want to explain that in this podcast is that we're very different. We sit there and we're not like, I was thinking about this recently. I said, I think Kolanut and our team have moved past storytelling. We're not storytelling. If we're storytelling and we care about representation, we just create Black characters in an American context.
Right.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make it a great story, right?
Sure.
You can have a great story. But we didn't do that. We're not storytellers, really. And we don't care about representation, because we can represent people who think negatively or sell drugs.
Mm-hmm.
We can represent that. That's what's happening in the part of the Black communities, like Snowfall, Tower, right? These are big shows, right?
Oh, yeah.
We can do all these things. And we were like, again, who did I study? I studied Miyazaki. He's pulling from his traditional beliefs.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, man.
And Takashi Kishimoto was pulling from multiple elements to kind of create this story about ninjas, which is a part of their society. And so for us, I think what we do is we welcome you to culture telling. I'm going to just make that up. Culture telling. Yeah. We're looking at cultures. Like in our name, what is it? Kolanut. If you say Kolanut, you're already African. If you say Kolanut, you're already saying something that's derived from the continent by name. So it's culture. If you're looking at the logo, it's a secret meaning from an ancient African society writing system. Yeah. Right? When you say the red chief hat, now you even know that what a red chief hat is. You're already dabbling into a deep Igbo culture where you can find out if you find out someone's Igbo, you're like, hey, is your father a chief? They'd be like, oh. Like, yeah. And you're like, oh, he has a red hat. They'd be like, oh, how do you know?
You know. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's culture telling. We're telling culture. And the more you get into it, the more you're steeped into a culture that you had no idea existed, wrapped in a very entertaining way. And that's what we do. We just do tons of research. We find a culture. We're like, this culture is cool. What is an equivalent entertainment medium or story medium that we can leverage? Well, you have an ancestor, 100 years, 1,000 years old. He emerges from the ground and everything's new, right? There's flying cars. And I was like, that sounds a lot like Samurai Jack.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so like, let's use that idea and then just bring this character on that ride. Yeah. So you're still doing the culture.
And bringing your culture and your experience with it. Yeah. So it's completely like, even if there's a lot of stories that seem to be repeats of other stories or whatever, but you're doing it in a way that it comes from your culture, your background. So by essence, it's already new and unique because it's coming from you and something that a lot of people haven't heard of. Like that makes it already unique. So man, I love that. I feel like you've just given me this really amazing way to look at your culture telling, the way the books are formed, the thought process behind the stories, all of that, man, is I think really, really freaking unique, really freaking cool. And yeah, I think you guys are crushing it for that. And you're oh man, I could go on and just keep calling because I just feel like you gave this amazing background to the book. Like anybody could go buy a book and you read the story and you like it or you don't. But for me, I always want to dive deeper into like, how did the creator come up with this? Why did they come up with this story the way it is? And you guys have just this amazing history behind the books and the stories that is just awesome. Yeah, it's awesome, man. So yeah, I think you kind of even touched on it. I was, gonna ask about like, what is it that what do you want to say or show that's different than being a African American community or a Black creator in the current space? And how do you feel like you're unique? But I think you've already touched on that. But I want to know, like, what's the impact that you want to leave from writing these stories and books? Is it just, what's the impact? What do you want people to take away from it?
Honestly, I want them to go to the continent. Like if you and you don't want to go to Nigeria and like find a red chief and you don't want that. You don't want to just check it out. Yeah. Go to Nigeria, Benin, or whatever. Kisi, you don't want to go to Ghana and see that electronic waste site. You read a Red Hunter. You don't want to go to northern Ghana and see if you can find Tohazi or that actual ethnic tribe and hear their stories about their legendary ancestral father. Like If it doesn't make you do that, then we failed. That's the impact I want. I want people just like, they read it and like, I want to book a ticket. Yeah. The same way you watch anime and like, I want to book a ticket to Japan. I want to see Meiji era. I want to see all that. You want to be a yakuza, whatever.
Yeah.
And you want to dress like it. You may want to get like all those feelings you feel when you watch anime, like, and then go to Japan, where this is the heart of where those traditions or stories are coming from. That's what we want. We want the impact to just sort of inspire you to go on this adventure to West Africa, North Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa. We just want you to do that. And so then you'll be like, oh, that's why this is happening. Oh, I'm sitting here in Southeast Nigeria and everyone's wearing red cheek pads. What's going on? This is like in Red Origin. Wow. Or I'm in Northern Ghana and you see the Dagomba and you're like, oh, Dagomba forever. And someone's like, Dagomba's like, yeah, Dagomba forever. Like, I'm Dagomba. Yeah. I can tell you about Tahazi, our ancestral father. I can show you about this legacy. This is actually really cool. That's what we want. That's the impact we want to do primarily for the fans. For other creators, the impact I want to do, I want to, just like hip hop, I kind of like, if you come out with a sound, it's so strong or a flow style, it should change the way you listen to hip hop. So when mumble rap came, that was the toughest time for me in hip hop. Oh, yeah. So I was like, I don't know if I could do this. But when mumble rap came, it changed the sound of hip hop. It was like this, all of a sudden we became old folks. I'm
gonna agree with you because I was like, listen, I like Bad and Bougie, but I don't know what Migos is doing here. Like, I don't quite get it yet, but now I love it. Like, now I love Migos and stuff. But you're right, it's changed what hip hop sounds like now.
Exactly, and NWA changed. Like, there are groups or individual artists or creators that come up with something and it just changes the entire music landscape, right?
Right.
And when gangster rap came back, right, with 50 and all that, it changed the sound. When Gucci Mane, when the sound moved from like the East Coast to the South, like Atlanta, Chopped and Screwed, the sound was 3-6 Mafia. They were just coming in, and everyone was now had the Southern flow style, Southern beats. Like, it changed the musical landscape. And so, like, because of that, the centers of hip hop would shift, right? Then there was drill. Then the UK started coming up with the hip hop called what was it? Grime, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hello? Can you see me?
Yeah, camera just turned off for a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, we can pick back up though. Yeah. So grime.
Yeah, grime. And so what we want to do is we want to essentially we want to have that experience. We want to create that. We want to make more people do culture telling. Like when I saw Woman King, I was like, this is a form of culture telling.
Yeah.
This character of a woman warrior king is so old. Like, it was the original the Dora Milaje in Marvel.
Yeah.
I read years ago about the true Amazon warriors of the Dahomey, which was modern day Benin. And that impacted our work. But I had this book for years and I couldn't understand why there was in the Justice League, you had the Amazon race.
Yeah. Themyscians.
Yeah, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I after reading, I was like, there's only one place essentially in the world where this actually exists, like a woman warrior unit,
right,
that protected the king. Like Amazon, it was actually in modern day Benin, and it took maybe 5, 6, 7 years from my picking up that book to actually see it on a Netflix, see it on screen.
Wow,
I found that fascinating. I was like, I want to push creators to start doing culture. Like, just going in, diving into whatever culture in the diaspora, particularly Black creators, and just pulling that lore and then using a lot of the storytelling styles you can just pick a story and connect it.
Mhm.
Like, that's what I wanna really do. And you're seeing it more and more with Women King. You're seeing it more and more with there was another story of a famous king or warrior. Like, you're seeing it kind of like come into the fold.
Right.
And,
Like
and
it's
that's
coming to
what
the
I want to do.
forefront now.
Yeah,
We're seeing movies
yeah,
and shows about it, and it's getting at least like the platforms it deserves.
exactly. That's what I want. And I want to see it all over webtoons. I just like you're just having this aha moment. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, storytelling is great. But man, it would be great to like just dive in and just feel this culture and be like, wow, this actually existed. Like a lot of the stories we tell are not, it writes itself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Right. Yeah. You set the characters, you come up with the characters, you get the setting, and then I feel like for you it just kind of pours out of you. Right.
it just
Yeah.
yeah, like the secret societies, the horned one, none of that I created. Already existed.
Wow.
These little secret societies already existed.
That's awesome.
Now you just use a framework that works. Naruto, okay, Naruto have different.
Mhm.
Okay, Avatar, same thing. Avatar, Last Airbender, right? It's the same concept. You just take what already pre-existing, pull it out, dust it, and be like, here it is, and it's
Right.
like, wow. And that's what I want to do. I think Black Panther is storytelling.
Mhm.
And I just want, and I think they're shifting to culture telling a bit, but it's like the, you should have known that Black Panther was happening in a part of Kenya.
Mhm.
You should know that. Like it should be framed that way. Like it's one of those things where it's like don't erase the people who have worked so hard, these ancestors, to maintain these names,
Mhm.
culture, the connection between the spiritual world, the ancestral plane, and the real world. All those folks, like they get almost written off, and that's why I think culture telling is really important. You can't write it off.
Yeah.
You can't add another ethnic character and wash them, or what they did to Avatar: Last Airbender. It was Asian, right? And it was like, or Inuit. It was the Inuit culture.
Yeah, I think I think the waterbenders were like Inuit, but a lot of it was taken from Asian culture. And this is no slight against like Indian, but like or Southeast Asian, but I don't know if it was necessarily Southeast Asian. And then you got M. Night Shyamalan who came in and turned that live action movie and tried to make it more Indian or like from the country of India, and it didn't translate, I guess, super well. But yeah, it was interesting. It was like, why wouldn't you just keep the source material?
Exactly.
Right. And I don't know if that's kind of what you're getting at is like,
yeah, keep the source material. And the only way you can keep the source material is if you culture tell. If you culture tell, you can keep the source material and you can just have respect for the ancestors. I mean, I don't talk that talk. Like, I believe in it. Like, I walk that walk. Like, I have a deep respect for what the ancestors have done in these forms of stories and these heroic feats. And I hope one day someone can come and write about what you're doing because you become an ancestor, and they're like, "Oh, this comes from this." The ability to interview creators and see what this community is doing. This is what my ancestor did.
yeah.
And this is how he did it, right? And I want that. I believe that's so important.
Yeah, that sounds way too impressive for me, but I appreciate that. But no, man, you have this awesome way of looking at creating and culture telling, as you said, and it's just really unique. I don't know how somebody could walk away hearing this and not feel pumped up or want to go grab one of your books, because there's so much passion in what you're saying. There's so much thought process. There's so much appreciation for the people who came before you in the storytelling. It's like, damn, man, I'm like ready to read like all the books you got tonight. Like, I'm hyped. So but thank you, man. I just, wow. I feel like you've already like expanded my mind so much. And again, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. Where can everybody go and find you? Where can they support you? Where can they get the books?
Well, let's start with the digital, right? I don't know if you can pull a webtoon and share a screen, but our multiverse is on Webtoon.
Yeah.
We have 27 titles on Webtoon.
Okay.
And the best way to be connected 24/7 to the NCU is to download Webtoons. And then after you download Webtoons, register with Google or Apple. And after you register an account, go to the search bar in the top right, type in Kolanut, Kolanut, and then you'll see some stories, and then click Canvas, and you'll see all our stories. Select any of those stories. Once you click that stories, you'll see our name, Kolanut Productions, underlined. You click that, follow our creator profile. And from that creator profile, you can see all our content. Select any story you want, subscribe to it, and we'll continue building stories for that series. And in that creator profile, you see all our links. So that's number one. Download Webtoons, follow our creator profile, Kolanut Productions.
Awesome. Yep.
To get our physical comics, Southern Californians, you have the glory. We're primarily based in Southern California, so at any of the cons, we're going to be at DreamHack, we're going to be at Africon, Comic-Con Revolution. We'll be selling our books at these conventions, and being in the streets, being in front of the people. We really want to see the people engage. And because we're primarily we're a digital first company, and we're primarily digital, but we've really made it a priority to be in front of the community and build this ecosystem and share the stories, the personal stories, versus like ordering and clicking. Like if you just ordered and clicked Red Orange, you would have known about the personal storytelling that's involved, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Right now, cons, you can get it. We're going to have our website coming out soon. But if you want to order a physical copy, you go to Instagram, DM us, and we can figure out shipping and ship the books out to you.
Right on, man. Yeah, if you want, we'll put this all in the show notes, all of your links along with your link tree. But for Instagram, it's Kolanut_prod, PROD for production. And yeah, man, all this is super awesome. I'm following. I've got my Red Origins. I got the Red Hunter. I understand the reading order, the timeline now. Dude, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, sharing your culture with us, and, you know, providing the Kolanut, I don't know, ethos, man, is beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. This is a great platform. I really wanted to do this. So thank you for taking the time. It's really exciting. We have a lot. One of the things I do want to announce is that because it's a multiverse and it's the NCU, whatever you subscribe to on Webtoons and it's like a vote. So if you're like, I want more, I want chapter 4 of Red Orange, or I want Mami Wata to come out, and you subscribe and you heart the episodes and view it, it counts as a vote and lets us know that we should come out with this next. So Webtoon is a way for you to influence what we produce for the NCU.
Wow,
so
that's awesome. I did not know it works that way, but that makes a ton of sense. And yeah, for sure, you will be seeing some votes coming your way from me particularly, and hopefully some people after listening to this episode. Man, it's awesome again to have you on. I really appreciate it, Obi. And yeah, I don't know, any other final thoughts, last words before we head out?
Yeah, well, welcome to Kolanut. Is the welcome. The keeper of tribal secrets, the keeper of content from the African lens. We have 100 titles slated throughout the year. We're going to be coming out with each title. And you're looking right now at the beginning groundwork of the African Disney.
That's awesome. I love it, man. All right, well, before we go, we ask all of our guests to say this. You can say, you can not, whatever you want to do, but we want to say thanks for sticking it with us.
Well, Obi and Kolanut Productions, thank you for having me. Thanks for sticking it with us.
Yeah, bud.
The Joystick Show.
If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, we'd really appreciate a follow, subscribe, and a review. Just how we like chatting with our friends, please share this with yours. Feel free to join the squad and follow us at JoySchtick JOYSHOW, Joystick Show on Twitter and Instagram, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like submitting topics or questions to be discussed on future episodes, you can email us at joystick.show@gmail.com. As always, thank you, peace out, and make it a great rest of your week.